Alright, well, I guess I need a miniature donkey now. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. As part of my coverage of the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival, today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 dark comedy drama, The Banshees of Inisherin, which will be released in theaters on October 21st. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all that extra content. The Banshees of Inisherin stars Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Kerry Condon, and was directed by McDonagh. Set in 1923 Ireland, it tells the story of best friends Padraig and Colin, who come into rapidly escalating conflict when their friendship is abruptly ended without reason. First-time watches are an exciting thing because of the air of possibility that they hold. Sometimes you come out of that first viewing having liked the film and being very excited about it, while other times you come out disappointed or maybe just apathetic. That first impression and reaction to a movie can be important, but it's what happens afterwards that's more telling. When I watch a movie for the first time, I usually just try to enjoy it in the moment, and not think too hard on what my future viewings of the film may be like. This approach is especially necessary at a film festival, where you watch 30 to 40 movies in a week's time. While at TIFF, I had 4 or 5 screenings every day, usually with only an hour or so between movies, which doesn't leave you with much time to sit on and ruminate about any one movie in the moment. There were a lot of movies that I really enjoyed at TIFF, but none have stuck in my mind and stayed with me quite like The Banshees of Inisherin. In the months since I saw the film, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, and in that thinking, I've realized that I enjoyed it even more than I initially thought, and for greatly expanded reasons. The Banshees of Inisherin is a deceptively hard film to classify. It's extremely entertaining and funny, but also deeply emotional and heartbreaking. Like McDonagh's previous films, this is a tightly executed, character-focused dark comedy that features a peculiar and memorable premise. This movie has some undeniable similarities to McDonagh's previous 2 films, the complicated partnership between Farrell and Gleeson in Bruges, and the intense tragedy at the heart of 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. But somehow, The Banshees of Inisherin is different in its overall vibe. It feels much simpler and smaller in scale than either of those movies. In fact, at first glance, it almost seems silly in its simplicity. When reading the premise, it can be difficult to see how this could possibly be a story idea capable of sustaining a feature-length film, let alone one as engaging, funny, and impactful as this. Although the story can be viewed as an allegory for several different larger-scale concepts, The Banshees of Inisherin is first and foremost a story about friendship. Or, more specifically, the end of a friendship. Faltering friendships are not an uncommon topic in film. Arguments, disagreements, fights, and just general conflict between friends is something we've seen in countless movies. But the basis of the friend breakup here is a bit different. This isn't about some fight or some bad decision that just can't be forgiven. In this case, we have 2 lifelong best friends who see each other every day, and one of them just decides to end the friendship completely out of the blue. Now, everybody has had a friendship end. It's a very universal experience. Maybe your friend moved, or got a new job, or you just gradually grew apart until the friendship eventually dissolved. Or maybe there was a more specific reason. A fight, or some big issue you just couldn't overcome. Those types of friendship-ending scenarios are fairly common, but this film touches on an entirely different type of friend breakup. A situation where your best friend suddenly cuts you out of their life for seemingly no reason. No fight, no drifting apart, just one day your best friend, and the next day a stranger. So, while everybody's lost friends, I suspect fewer people have experienced this specific type of situation. It seems kind of ridiculous, right? It sounds like the kind of thing that would only happen in a movie. But I can tell you from experience that it's not just a movie thing, and that it's pretty awful. Losing a friend sucks no matter what way it happens, but the sudden best friend to complete stranger method hurts the most. Whether or not you've personally experienced this situation, this film does an excellent job of pulling you into the premise. The friend breakup happens minutes into this movie, so it feels as abrupt to us, the audience, as it does to Colin Farrell's character, Padraig. But there's an important difference between us and him. History. These two characters are strangers to us from the start, but Colin has only just suddenly become a stranger to Padraig. They have years of friendship and history that we only learn about through the course of the story, and the repercussions of this friend breakup. But the timing and suddenness of this event is essential to the story, because you really feel for Padraig. His confusion, his vulnerability and sadness, his desperation for answers after having been completely blindsided. As with any breakup or conflict, I suppose it's inevitable that the audience is bound to pick a side, at first. Padraig is presented in the more sympathetic light, and it's through him that we primarily experience the story. And having been in his shoes, I can certainly empathize with him a bit more. But Colin is far from a villain here. He has his reasons, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who'd be able to empathize with him more. But it soon becomes clear that this movie isn't about taking sides. It's an exploration of change and personal growth and self-care, but it's also a cautionary tale about the dangers of escalation and grudges and just plain stubbornness. This movie is about an impasse, a stalemate, a cold war, but a war between friends, a civil war that leads best friends to turn on each other and do drastic things they never would have dreamed of before. This is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to even hint at what happens, but this simple story takes a bizarre and decidedly McDonagh turn. We're pretty far into this review at this point, and I'm realizing how bleak and sad this movie sounds. And it is. It's a devastatingly emotional and borderline tragically dark film at times. But counterintuitively, it's also possibly the funniest movie I've seen all year. The humor here is definitely very dark and dry in that typical McDonagh way. It's full of situational oddities and moments that are just so bizarre and ridiculous that they're impossible not to laugh at. But this movie also boasts a fantastically funny script with impeccably delivered dialogue. Most of the lines are dryly funny to begin with, but the earnestness with which they're said, especially by Padraig, makes them even more enjoyable. The story, script, and performances are gonna deservedly get most of the attention here, but I would be remiss not to at least mention how fantastic this movie looks. The locations and outdoor landscape shots are spectacular, and even though there's this gloomy, overcast feeling for much of the movie, it's got this inherent vibrancy to it. But even the indoor shots look great. The lighting, the framing of shots, even the costumes and set design. I could spend a few more paragraphs just talking about all the technical elements of this movie. Don't even get me started on the score. But really, this is just an altogether well-crafted film. It takes a simple idea, presents it in a way that can be viewed and interpreted on many different levels, and then deftly balances two seemingly dichotomous tones. The story's specific, and at times very odd, but it's deeply emotional and heartfelt, not to mention alarmingly universal. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is the emotion. I'll admit that I wasn't expecting to put this as my number one pro. Certainly not when I was going into the film, but even after I saw it. In the moment, it was the humor and snappiness of the movie that initially grabbed me. The heart and tragedy and emotion were there, but under the sheen of entertainment and festival excitement. But in the months since I watched the movie, the impact of that emotional undercurrent has really snuck up on me, and I've come to realize how brilliantly layered this movie is. I probably have a bit more relatability bias than most people, which I'm sure helps me connect with this film on a deeper level, but I think even the average person will really feel for these characters, and feel the intensity of the emotions in the situation. The second pro is the script. Okay, so this is the pro that I thought was gonna be my number one. Honestly, even when I started writing this review, I thought it was going to be number one, and the thing I spent most of the time talking about, because it was what made the biggest impression on me when I first saw the film. As devastatingly emotional and sad as the core premise and some of the scenes are, this is an exceptionally funny and entertaining movie. If you've seen any of McDonagh's other films, you probably have a pretty good idea of his writing style. It's dialogue heavy, but very witty and snappy, with a lot of characters talking in quick succession or slightly over each other in a realistic conversational way. Again, the subject is pretty dark, but there are just so many funny lines, and at least for most of the movie, the script has a very bouncy, playful feel to it that's incredibly enjoyable. Pro number 3 has gotta be the performances. All of McDonagh's films are very character-focused, but I would argue that none more so than this film. And so the performances were an essential component of what was needed for this film to work. There are a handful of secondary characters, and I want to give some praise to Kerry Condon, who plays Padraig's sister, Siobhan, but the performance focus here, understandably, is on the duo of Colin Farrell and Gleeson. It's fun to see them reunite again so many years after In Bruges, and although the characters here are very different, they still have that great chemistry, even while in the midst of a friend breakup. Gleeson gives a humorously terse performance, but it's Farrell that really shines here in a very sympathetic and earnest role that's hard not to love. On the con side, my only issues are really just minor nitpicks that mostly center around the character of Dominic, played by Barry Keoghan. For much of the film, this character is basically used for comic relief, which is kind of unnecessary given how comedic the rest of the script already is. There is some purpose to this character, and he definitely has his moments, but he was easily my least favorite part of the film, and I think the story would have played just as well if his character didn't even exist. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying the Banshees of Inisherin or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give the Banshees of Inisherin 4.5 out of 5 paws. This is a darkly funny but incredibly touching story about change, loss, and friendship. The script is possibly my favorite of the year, and the film boasts a wonderful set of performances, both human and donkey alike. I've got this at 4.5 paws right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if this eventually makes it up to 5 paws with a few rewatches. I would recommend the Banshees of Inisherin to almost anybody. Those who already like McDonagh's dry, dark comedy will probably appreciate this the most, but the simple yet compelling story gets at universal aspects of life and friendship in a way that even his most recent past films haven't. This is a dark, at times semi-shocking story, but even if the film's more outrageous plot elements don't click with you, the tragedy, heart, and pathos surely will, especially if you've ever gone through a difficult friend breakup of your own. If you liked the Banshees of Inisherin, I would recommend In Bruges. This is another McDonagh-directed film starring Colin Farrell and Gleeson as two friends stuck in a tough situation. This is a more expansive crime comedy, with Farrell and Gleeson portraying hitmen, but it's another movie with a good script and fun chemistry. If you're interested in another tragic but entertaining story, you might want to watch 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. This was McDonagh's most recent film prior to the Banshees of Inisherin, and stars Frances McDormand as a mother trying to get justice for her murdered daughter. If you'd prefer to see a story of rekindled friendship, you should check out Thoroughbreds. It's a comedic but very dark and twisty tale centered on 2 childhood best friends who reunite after many years apart. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen the Banshees of Inisherin? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about a friend breakup? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.